Okay. Coach Painter wants to just go to questions. So, Chris, right here in front.
Chris Hagan, Fox, Indianapolis. I know there's more than one way to skin a cat and get to the Sweet 16, but I saw a graphic posted where Purdue's the only school where all 5 starters are at their original school. Mm-hmm. Do you take any pride in that? What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, we're somewhere where there's good high school coaches and there's good players. I think that's probably the number one thing for us is that, there's a lot of guys for here, in the state of Indiana for us to recruit. And if you have a good job, that's normally the case, right? And but we've just stayed the same path as we have before. Like we've taken transfers before, even though we've taken 2 people out of the portal in 4 years, probably the fewest amount in the country. But we still took someone out of the portal that was a big piece for us last year, going to the Final Four, in Lance Jones. And we're gonna get a guy or 2 here in the portal in the spring. So it's just kind of the way in terms of like how you recruit and how you go about things. Probably the fact that we've been able to keep guys sometimes kind of blows your mind because it's hard, right? If you have 13 guys on scholarship to keep everybody happy. But education's always been a part of our equation. So I think when guys maybe don't play as much or don't start or get their minutes or whatever, you really got to think, I'm going to transfer and then go somewhere else and not get a degree at Purdue. And so like the 2 guys that left us last year, I made them a year before tell me if they wanted another year. I wasn't going to wait to the spring and just, be in limbo. So I gave him a couple weeks and said, hey, just let us know. But, Mason got 2 degrees from Purdue. Ethan had already graduated and was working on a master's. So, both of those guys then, had a change of heart after the season that they wanted to play another, but I'd already used those scholarships. So it makes more sense to do your work in the fall than wait till the spring. Just because now you see so many guys out here getting recruited with crazy money being thrown their way. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here, though, because there's no doubt that we're going to, use the portal. We're just probably not going to use it as much as everybody else.
Right, here's Zach.
Zach Osterman, Indianapolis Star. Matt, this will be, if I'm not mistaken, the first time you've coached against Kelvin since his time at IU. I'm just curious kind of what you remember maybe about those games. I think you played each other 3 times back then, but also maybe just kind of like that time just in the state and the rivalry. You both kind of arrived around the same time, I think you a year before, but just kind of what you remember about the rivalry then.
Yeah, they won 2 out of 3. They manhandled us at their place one time. The other time we played at their place, they won again, but the game was closer. We missed some free throws down the stretch. Eric Gordon played well in the game. That's what I remember about that. The other game that we won at home, David Teague had 32. Got a lot of baseline action for David Teague. He made some really tough shots in that game. Carl Landry had a good game. Those were our 2 best players then. So that's kind of what I remember, just from that, just from like the rivalry and everything that like kind of goes into those games. And but yeah.
Right here, back in the back.
Dustin Schutte, Sports Illustrated, Purdue. Matt, at times this season, guys like Camden and Miles, for lack of a better term, maybe were a little gun shy when they had some open looks, but they didn't seem to have that issue in the first 2 rounds. Just how important is that when you play a team that's so plays so well defensively like Houston? Yeah,
Houston is a fabulous all-around team. Number 1 team in the country in defense, but also 3-point percentage. And they have players, that come off the bench for them that are great players. And it's one of those things that they're so good defensively. If you don't take that shot, it's kind of like facing a real pitcher in the major leagues, and you get that good first pitch and you take it, you're probably not getting another good pitch. That was a mistake. So when you get shots, you got to take them. Because when you don't take them, you can end up with shot clock violations. You can end up with just pick 6 turnovers. Like they're so active and they do such a good job disrupting the basketball, whether that's their post defense and their doubles, or it's their aggressive ball screen defense, or just playing passing lanes and just their overall pressure. I could go on and on about it. Like they're an elite defensive team. So it's going to be important for us to let it rip. But it's also important for us to do that no matter who we're playing. Like you're referencing real stuff there. Like, when the coaching staff and everybody on the team is telling those guys, like, hey, you got to take your shots, and then they're pausing or passing them up, like that doesn't help our offense whatsoever. We don't have 5 guys out there creating for us. We have a couple guys creating for us. So it's important to take the ones that come your way.
Right here, Bob.
Bob Kravitz, Indy Monthly. How do you explain TKR's growth this season? And you saw this coming a couple of years ago, even when he was still under Edie's shadow, under his shadow. Yeah.
I would just say his work and the time that he puts in individually more than anything. Like who are you when the coaches aren't around? Who are you in the off season? And Trey's put a lot of time into it, but just working on his own. Like he's worked on his body. He's a guy that is very unique. He's physical, but yet he's skilled. And I think the number one thing for him, anytime you're a good player and you can score, it normally teaches you how to pass. Because you're getting a lot of attention. Like you should be a good passer. And he's become a really good passer and a really good decision maker. And that's going to be real important in this game. But no, just proud of him for his work. But anytime you put, that purposeful work into it and you know what you're doing and you know how to apply it, you're going to make a big jump. But it's also the opportunity. With Zach leaving, it was a big opportunity for him to step in there.
Chris
Whitlick, CBS 4. Matt, 1 year ago, you guys were the hunted. At this point of the season, you made it all the way to the championship. This year, obviously very different. Does it feel different? Does it affect things differently with this year's team as opposed to 1 year ago?
Yeah, not really. Not really. It's one of those things where every game is tough. Like we were sitting here last year and we had to play Gonzaga in this game, and then we ended up playing, Tennessee. So now being able to play Houston, who had just now this year just played Gonzaga in a very close game. So everybody's, great. Like nobody messed around and ended up in the Sweet 16, right? They had to earn their way here. And if you look at Houston, you could argue that they're the best team in the country, especially after their first 5 games. They lost their 3 of their 4 games early. The one thing that's so impressive about them is that they've had some injuries and they've had some foul trouble, and they don't skip a beat. They keep going. It's just a great program. He's a great coach. But it's no different than playing Gonzaga last year in the Sweet 16. You could give all the same superlatives to Mark Few and his team and his program, and that was going to be tough. Beating Tennessee was going to be tough. And obviously we were fortunate enough to do that. So yeah, you're comparing 2 different types of toughness, right?
Over here.
Hey, Matt. Eric Olson of the Associated Press. Just kind of curious about your thoughts on this. It's well documented that all of the teams that are in the Sweet 16 are from power conferences, first time since '85. Do you think that's an anomaly, or do you think that going forward this is going to be the norm?
Well, when we sat on a lot of committees, and I've put a lot of time into it, and that was the one thing when the portal kept going and they allowing guys to, it started with the one-time transfer, right? And now you can transfer whenever you want. And we really talked about that, why do we want to go against everyone's a high school recruit at one point. So now it's taken away from the high school recruit and his opportunities. We didn't want that. And then March Madness, and we've been on the wrong end of this a couple times, the upsets and how valuable the upsets are to the common fan, and how it's created March Madness. Let's not get away from it. It's a big piece of March Madness. So then we're I grew up on Ball State's campus, but I grew up wanting to go to Indiana. And so when kids grow up, they want to go to the elite schools, they want to go to the Power 5 schools, and now those other schools are really good basketball schools, but they also have to be able to grow their product. And now, if we're not going to grow our product as much and we're going to have a different team every single year, Purdue's still going to have players. I don't care who the coach is and what the situation is. Like, you sell out every single one of your games. Our fans are unbelievable. Like, we have the most Big Ten championships. Like, we've had success for a long, long time. Like, you're going to always have players. But now these guys are just getting cherry-picked from the D2s and the low majors and the mid-majors, and cherry-picked from high major to high major. And so now when you look at that, one of the things we talked about in those committees is this going to take away from the value of a low to mid-major program? Because if it's not fair to anybody, it's not fair to them. Like, that's not fair to them. They get a good player, they develop a good player, they lose a good player, right? And like, that piece of it, we talked about taking away from high school recruiting, which it has, and we talked about taking away from the low to mid-major programs. Now, time's going to tell, like, how true that is, right? Obviously, it looks like it's trending that way, but we'll see through data. And the other thing that we talked about was, you know, what you want in life is opportunity more than anything. And 99% of all college basketball players are not pros. Like digest that and understand that. Like, these opportunities for these young men and women to take is not just like getting an all-conference plaque on the wall. It's allowing them a better opportunity to have a successful life and have their own family. And not for everybody, right? Like, some people like are going to be successful. You know, their dad went to college, their grandfather went to college, their great-grandfather went to college. You could just go on and on and on. Some people come from a single-parent home, some people that didn't go to college, whatever. And if we're just chasing basketball and we're devaluing education, like, what are we really doing here, right? So from a basketball standpoint, I think there's some things that you got to look at, and there's also some things from an educational standpoint, and to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to help them out, because a lot gets talked about. Okay, these guys haven't been paid in the past, but education has also put us in some great positions there, and I understand that, and I don't think there's any coaches that want to get away from that. But I don't like when you have 200, 300, 400, 500 kids put their name in the portal and they had a scholarship and now they don't. Like, what about them? You're saying, well, that kid should be able to do what he wants. And people that are successful don't always do what they want. They do what's best for them. And we get away from that. But that's what we're here for. We're here to help them and fight them, but also be an advocate for them with that fight. And so, like, that piece of it has got to get fixed. Because now, if some kid was only going to get an education because he was good in basketball, that's a good thing. And now he has a better chance to be successful in life. And now if he just jumps schools and he thinks, oh, I'm going to go in the portal and get money and get a better situation, and now he doesn't get a scholarship when he had one, and now he never gets a degree, which we all know a lot of people out there have been very, very successful without a degree. But we all know it helps from a percentage standpoint. There's no doubt that it helps, you know, young people. So I think those are the type of things that we got to make sure we keep in perspective, not just, hey, this kid should be able to go where he wants. Coaches, you know, leave their schools and go other places and do that. And I understand that's a valid argument. It's a very valid argument. But there's a big cohort of young people in there with a lot of different examples in there. And it's always been our responsibility to try to set the framework of that so everybody has the best chance to be successful. And that really has much not to do a lot with basketball, but basketball really being a vehicle for life.
We have time for a couple more for Coach Painter right here.
Elsie Norton, SB Nation. When you have a point guard like Braden who's seen all kinds of different defenses and individual matchups in his career, does that make your preparation a bit easier on you when you're getting ready to play a team with a defense like Houston's?
Yeah, it makes it easier on me, but it's still difficult. You know, the best thing I can do for him is go and play teams non-conference that is like Houston. If you didn't play, we didn't play Houston. But playing Auburn, playing Texas A&M, playing Ole Miss, playing Marquette, like those are some of the people. He's played against some really good programs, some really good coaches. But this might be the biggest challenge he's had. You know, this is the number one defense in the country. You know, this is a big challenge for our team. But you know, he does a lot for us. But that we're just hoping through our experiences that we've put him in the best position to be successful. I know he's looking forward to it, and he's very competitive, and he's had a great year. But that's the one thing from our standpoint that we try to do. Some people think like we overscheduled this year, but anybody be a fool right now to think that the teams that beat us in non-conference didn't help us to get to this point, because they were so good. Auburn's so good. Texas A&M is so good. Shaka Smart and like what they do, Chris Beard, like and how they operate, that's difficult to go against. And he's had those experiences. He's been in the Final Four. He's won 2 Big Ten championships. So he's had a lot of different experiences. But with all that being said, Houston's defense could be the best out of all those people I mentioned.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.